So, you may have noticed over the last few years a lot of Asian players coming over to England, whether you've seen it on lineups, whether you've seen it in the news, or whether it's your racist uncle talking about it over the dinner table, saying how, oh, all these Asian players coming over, nicking our players' jobs, all that bollocks. And there's a fair reason as to why this is happening, and we're going to be covering that in today's video. So if you ever do come across your weird racist uncle talking about this again, you can tell him to shove it, because it actually makes sense. So let's add some context. Throughout the 72 teams in the EFL for the 24-25 season, there are currently 45 players who represent AFC affiliated nations, such as South Korea, Japan, Australia and Indonesia. For example, my club Portsmouth, over the last 2 seasons, we have signed 6 different players from Australia, including Cassini Yengi, Thomas Waddingham, Hayden Matthews, Alex Robertson, Sammy Silvera, Jacob Farrell, and then even then we've also had links to both Cameron Devlin, who plays for Hearts, and Aidan O'Neill. There are currently 8 championship sides who boast a Japanese player, such as Al Tanaka, who plays at Leeds, Daishi Hashioka at Luton, and Tatsuhiro Sakamoto at Coventry. Whilst Birmingham, who play in League One, have 2 Japanese players, both Iwata and Yokoyama, and even the big guns of English football, Basingstoke FC, have gone on the action and they've signed attacker Morrison Hashi. What a boy. So, why is it that all of these players over the last few years have been coming over to play in England? Well, point 1 is to do with Brexit. Your racist uncle's ears have just perked up. So before Brexit, English clubs had strict EU regulations around work permits, essentially prioritising and making it easier for English clubs to sign players who represent EU nations. So for example, an English club would find it easier to get a work permit for an Italian than for a Brazilian player. But now the UK isn't in the EU anymore because of Brexit, all foreign players, no matter if they're European or not, are now subject to the same regulations. And this regulation is called the GBE, which stands for Governing Body Endorsement. So to pass the GBE regulations, players must hit a 15-point threshold based on the following criteria, which is international appearances, club appearances, and the strength of the league. You hit that 15-point threshold, you get a work permit. So for players from these Asian leagues, such as Korea's K-League, Japan's J-League, and Australia's A-League, felt like I didn't need to specify that. This massively levels the playing field, as now English clubs find it just as hard to sign players from European clubs, as every nation is treated exactly the same, no matter if they're European or not. So let's give a little example. Both Serie B and the K-League rank very similar, if not the same, according to globalfootballrankings.com. So we'll take 2 players from there. Let's say Min Kyu-song from Jeonbuk and Matteo Tramini, who plays for Pisa. So both of them are the same age. Both are very versatile around the front line and can play anywhere amongst that front 3, and also have both played a very similar amount of professional games. So if we were to treat the GBE regulations like a checklist, the K-League and Serie B rank the same, which covers the strength of the league. Both players have played the same amount of professional games, covering club appearances. However, Song is South Korean and has played 15 games for the national team. Tramini is French and is so far yet to be capped for the national team. I'm praying for you, Tramini. So, to the GBE regulations, Song would be eligible for a work permit, Tramini would not. So to sum it up, whilst Asian leagues are a similar quality to those in Europe, in terms of international sides, they're not quite there yet. This means that for players who are homegrown in Asia, they stand more of an opportunity to play for the international side and tend to get capped more than their European counterparts. Essentially meaning, for a work permit, they can get a work permit a lot easier than someone who's a similar quality but represents a European team. But if you're Matteo Tramini and you dream of coming over to England to play your games here, it's not all over. There are exceptions for players who don't meet work permit requirements. Clubs can still sign these players but allocate them something called an ESC slot, which stands for Elite Significant Contribution. All teams in the EFL and the Premier League have up to 4 slots, but this is all dependent on how many minutes their homegrown players have played. So if you've got loads of homegrown talent and they've all played loads of games, you get 4 slots. But if you don't, you only get 2. But this allows clubs to sign players who are not eligible for a work permit to still sign for the club, but to actually work towards their work permit whilst representing their English club. So as another example, I'll go back to my club Portsmouth. Let's say Kusini Yengi, he is capped by Australia, I think 15 times now. He can get a work permit, but let's say Nicholas Schmid, our goalkeeper who came in the summer from Blau-Weiß Linz, because he represents Austria and is yet to be capped, he has taken up an ESC slot. This brings us quite nicely to point number 2, growth of Asian leagues and the development of players. It is no secret that AFC affiliated leagues such as the A-League, the J-League, the K-League, and more recently Indonesia's Liga 1 have experienced exponential growth over the last 20 years, prioritising homegrown academy products and long-term growing the league organically, unlike their Indian or Middle Eastern counterparts. Significant investment has gone into developing grassroots academies and coaching in their countries, and therefore has significantly improved their divisions, both from a player and tactical point of view. It is a big myth in England that Asian players lack the physicality needed to succeed in the English game, following Inamoto's underwhelming stint in England during the early 2000s. But funnily enough, this isn't the case, and many players who have come over in recent years have completely proved this wrong. One example coming to mind, Park Ji-sung for Man United. What a midfielder he was, literally nicknamed Three Lung Park because of his athleticism. And so many other players have come over to England and showed they've got the athleticism and that they can match the physicality that the English game demands. Which moves us nicely onto point number 3, the evolution of tactics in the EFL. It is often stated that EFL leagues are the most physical, bringing back the days of 4-4-2 Brexit ball, oofing it long to the big man up top. You know what I'm saying, no woke nonsense. Yes, there are still teams in the EFL that play this style of football, but they are the minority. The truth is, and especially in the Championship, no one really plays like that anymore. Instead, moving to a new possession-based era, playing out from the back, pressing high, that's a new era of tactics in the EFL. And this shift of tactics has created a demand for players who are more tactically focused, with huge amounts of athleticism and work rate. And now, a lot of teams in these Asian leagues, especially the J-League and the Japanese national team, play a very similar style of football as to now what we see in the EFL. And it now means a lot of players coming over from these Asian leagues actually understand the EFL and understand what they need to do. So it means these players require less time to settle in, straight away creating an impact on the squad and understanding the tactical demands. Which leads us to our final point, which is finances. Now, we all know how markets work. If there is a big demand for supply, it means the price goes up, and if there's not a demand, the price goes down. And that is exactly the same way the transfer market works. Leagues who have more of a demand for their players are able to charge a higher fee, and leagues who don't, they don't make much in terms of transfer revenue. And a lot of this is to do with a false perception that we've covered already in terms of Asian players lacking physicality, or the fact that the leagues aren't really that developed. It has meant that European teams don't really tend to shop over in Asia because of these false perceptions. And as we've established, that's not true in the slightest. And a lot of clubs are now realising this. And another reason as to why transfer values are a lot lower over in Asia is for a reason that we actually see quite a lot in Europe, especially in our upcoming leagues. And that is, obviously, whilst the leagues are still improving and they're developing and they are a lot better than what they were 20 years ago, they're still not one of the big leagues, meaning they do earn a lot less revenue. And that means if they do want to challenge and make sure that the club is running stably, they have to sell their best players. And sometimes you have to sell your best players and you might not get the fee you want from them. Another factor is that players just want to move over to Europe because they want to test themselves in the Champions League. They want to go on to these big leagues in La Liga and England, play in the Premier League and earn the big bucks. On average, across a lot of Asian leagues, players don't earn that much money. Obviously excluding the likes of UAE and Saudi Arabia. Players earn nowhere near the amount that they do in Asia than what they could earn in Europe, especially in a league like the Championship. And all of those financial reasons combined is a major factor in why a lot of EFL clubs are now doing their business over in Asia. I'm going to give you an example to showcase this. So Derby have just signed centre-back Sondre Langors from Viking, who play in the Eliteserien, as they look to cash in on Aaron. I fucking hate myself. Langors is a young internationally capped centre-back who is regarded as one of the best players in his position in the league. And he cost the Rams £4 million. It's good business. You know, for a player of that quality, it's good business. However, a couple of weeks ago, Portsmouth completed the signing of Australian international Hayden Matthews. Matthews is a 20-year-old internationally capped centre-back, yet again also regarded as one of the best players in his position in the league, yet cost Portsmouth just £1.2 million. And to be fair, I've seen him twice now. He's played against Millwall and Burnley in the last 2 games, and he has more than shown that he is capable of playing in the Championship to a high standard. So, yet again, great business. But yet again, 2 centre-backs who are of a similar calibre, both internationally capped, yet one represents a European nation, one represents an AFC-affiliated nation, and one is a lot more expensive than the other. And all of those reasons combined is why English teams are now signing Asian players and going over to the Asian market. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I hope you found it informative and I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.